I will say that overall, I think this was a very weak round of jump starts, of new jump serializations. I did just praise Hachimaru, and I have enjoyed it more with each chapter, but I was not completely enthused by that first chapter, and that's how I felt with all the first chapters of all the series in this round. They really all got off to a weak start to me, and while, of course, I enjoyed them more with each chapter just because, there's more time to, get to know characters, I do think that none of these series have really hit the ball running. But Samurai 8 is the furthest along the journey. Samurai 8 is the most well thought out and the series that has figured itself out and knows what it's doing. And I am more confident in that compared to the rest of these series. And especially Double Taisei to me feels like a series that completely changed the idea of what it wanted to do and what kind of series it is based on how jarring the shift is from what the first chapter sets up to what the second chapter sets up, and the series has been from thence on. And to go into the premise of Double Taisei, this series comes to us from Kentaro Fukuda, and it is basically a shogi manga that is about these two twins, these two separate personalities that inhabit the same body, Tai and Sei. Tai, as the character Tai in his name would suggest, he is the personality that appears during the daytime when the sun is out, and he is an aspiring shogi player. They call him a prodigy. He's a very serious-minded kind of person. He's very well-respected. He's very popular with his peers, all that. And then opposite of him, the nighttime personality that inhabits the body when Tai goes to sleep is Sei, who is a lot more loose, a lot more freedom-loving. He doesn't want to commit to anything, really. He changes his mind as what he wants to do, what career he wants to pursue, because he's kind of flaky in that way. He also has a huge skill for shogi and played a game with his brother that, has been kind of on a standstill for years, and the board of their game just stays in their room untouched, basically, for years. But basically, Sei goes out on the town at night and he tries to play his guitar and stuff, but he's not having much success with that, whereas Rei, again, is prodigy, really going up in the world of professional shogi, even though he himself admits that his brother actually is more skilled than him. But because of an incident that happens in the first chapter where, their body gets brutalized by some ne'er-do-wells who were harassing their friend. Their body gets beat up, so when Tai goes to play the game the next morning, his professional match, he, kind of collapses from exhaustion, and because he falls asleep, Sei's personality takes over. He plays the game instead, and even though Sei loses the game, Tai has set it up in a way that the game is like his last match he had with Sei, so Tai and Sei's last game. So Sei continues the game. Basically, he loses the game, but everyone is so awestruck that, oh my god, he was thinking so much in advance. These were amazing moves. The people who don't know shogi very well call it a disastrous move, but the real genius is the rival character Haga, who is this guy who tortures himself, basically. He straps himself in bondage gear strap things, has his hand chained behind his back. He's a real punk-looking, emo-looking dude, even though he's actually kind of energetic.
I thought he was in a straitjacket at first. I honestly couldn't tell.
Yeah, straitjacket is probably a more accurate term to describe it. But anyway, Haga plays with Tai the next day, very inspired by the quote-unquote disastrous move that Sei played at the game before. And then he loses the game to Tai, and he becomes really frustrated, but he he becomes inspired that, oh, Tai is such a good player. I respect him so much. We're going to be rivals. You better remember me because I'll be back for revenge. But, Tai makes the mistake of messing that interaction up because he forgot Haga's name. So Haga is very humiliated by this. He's very frustrated. And we don't really know what truly happened, but it seemingly is like Haga threw Tai down the stairs, and Tai fell down the stairs. It was a steep fall. He was bleeding afterwards, was hospitalized. Inside their internal mind where Tai and Sei interact with each other, which is a very weird internal mind image. They're both like in fetal positions. They have umbilical cords. It's a very weird image. But anyway, basically, Tai is like, oh, Sei, it hurts so much. And then, Tai disappears in a blinding light. And then when the body awakens, it's Sei's personality, even though it's daytime out. It's under a blue sky. And then, no matter what happens afterwards, it seems that Tai is never returning. So Sei is the only inhabitant of the body. And it's up to Sei, basically, to carry on Tai's legacy as a shogi player, not to let his position prestige in the shogi world go down, not to let his career fall to the wayside until Tai returns. He still holds out hope that Tai will return one day. That's basically the idea of it from this point onwards. And then, so far in the story, he has not won a game, but he has caught the attention of a lot of people because they recognize that even though he's been losing these games, he's thinking multiple steps ahead on a whole nother level and making really interesting and great moves. So he's left all his opponents awestruck. So he is gaining a reputation in that way. But yeah, that's basically how the story has been progressing. It is a very weird shift from the first chapter to the second chapter. The first chapter really does set it up. Like, it is a story about these two personalities, and they are basically trying to push each other to become better shogi players. But then it takes such a hard turn in the second chapter in which they basically get rid of one of the key hooks to the premise, is that this was a story about these two double personalities, these two twins living inside the same body who, show up whenever the other falls asleep. It completely erases that premise and then makes it like 2 chapters in a story about carrying on the legacy of a lost loved one. And it's like such a distinct and weird shift in stakes and content just 2 chapters in to make. Because I just feel like this is something that would have more impact if, this was further on into the story. Like, when Cross Game revealed its hand that it was a story about, like, these characters kind of living on for the dream of a fallen friend, that took a volume to get to that. To get that introduction out of the way, to set up that idea for the story, really let you know the relationship between the characters and really feel the pain of loss and understand what the emotional stakes of the story were. And then, like, in this series, like, it takes 2 chapters to get to that point. I get Tai and Sei's relationship, but I'm not invested in it because it's very nebulous. We don't really see how they interact that well. Beyond just this idea of, they having different perspectives on the world, the different personalities, and that affects how they play the game of shogi and how they communicate through that game of shogi. So it really, really did not work for me. Like, the twist that happened in the second chapter, I just felt like you set up one concept for the story that was interesting and you removed it by the second chapter and made it something else. Like, the supernatural element of it is essentially gone now, and there's still weirdness because Haga is in his strap-on straitjacket thing, whatever. That's a weird character in this world of otherwise normal people, but it just feels like the story has lost a hook, lost an edge, and has become something that it doesn't have the weight to really tell. Like, I don't feel the loss of Tai, so I don't really feel too invested in the idea of Sei achieving Tai's dream in his stead. it really fumbled the execution in like shifting the story into that direction, in my opinion. And while I am enjoying the series a little more with each chapter, just because it is a very readable series, like the art is very clean, the paneling is very effective in what it needs to do in telling the story. It reminds me a lot of Takashi Obata's style of art in paneling in terms of how it communicates the story and how the character designs work and stuff. So I definitely got a lot of Hikaru no Go vibes from that and all that. You know, it's very easy to make connections to the series because they're both a series that are kind of about like other personalities taking over for the main character and playing like games for them, and then that other character then getting the desire to become good at the game themselves and all that. But you know, Hikaru no Go took like 3 years to get to the point where Sai had to leave Hikaru and Hikaru had to carry on, follow his dream on his own. You know, it took over 130-ish chapters to get to that point. Double Taisei tries to kind of pass the torch, have a moment like that, in 2 chapters, and it didn't quite sell me on that. But I don't know if the series necessarily kind of has legs with its premise, because again, it just took away one of its hooks. It could have something with the character of Haga, who is interesting in how odd he is, and so there could be an interesting rivalry there between that character and Sei, but they haven't done anything with it as of yet. But again, Double Taisei, it is a series that, you know, it's very readable, but it is not... It feels the opposite of Samurai 8 to me, and where Samurai 8 really feels like it knows what it's doing. Double Taisei, I don't think it knows what it's doing. I don't know what it thinks it's doing.
Yeah, this series is really weird, and I at first I didn't really understand what it was going for. Because the whole thing, right, even in the first chapter, like, I couldn't understand, because, like, they make a big deal about how, like, Sei is the kind of person who, like, will, like, get really enthusiastic about a new thing he's into, and then, like, he'll just kind of, like, drop it at some point. Like they mention how, I forget all the stuff that they mention, but, like, they mention him, like, I don't know, getting into music and getting into this other stuff. He apparently had a YouTuber phase at one point, which I love that detail. I think that's pretty great. But yeah, I couldn't tell if he was, like, actively staying away from shogi for some reason, or if, like, I don't know, like, I didn't really understand his arc at first.
So the idea of this is that Sei is better at shogi than Tai. Like, Tai knows that Sei has incredible skill. The reason why they haven't finished their game is because, you know, Sei does not want to take away the one real skill that Tai really excels at. The one thing that Tai is really passionate about and really wants to pursue as his dream. Like, that's Sei's perspective. Like, Sei wants Tai to have that thing, so he does not want to pursue that thing. He doesn't want to play shogi. He wants to let that be Tai's path in life, and he wants to find his own different path in life away from that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes a little more sense. Yeah, I don't know. This didn't really pull me in either. Like, I'm already not super interested in, like, shogi in particular. I don't know. Like, this series is coming from a person who, like, you know, it's coming from the person who created Devilly Man. And for anybody who read the first 3 chapters of that back in the day, like, I don't know. I feel like it's really jarring to go from their, like, from something like that, like a gag manga, to this sort of, like, something this realistic looking with, like, a lot of really out there idea. I don't know. It just felt really out there, and I don't know. Like, it's really hard for me to describe what about this didn't work for me, but I guess you kind of described it the best. Like, I don't know. It was a little too out there for me personally, and I agree that, like, I wasn't super invested in the characters or the relationships at all, so, like, a lot of that kind of fell flat for me too. Man, I don't know. I don't think this is the kind of thing that I'm going to be reading weekly. I just don't think I have any more interest in reading anymore, personally.
I'll see where it goes. I read everything in Jump, so I'll be following it. But I don't suspect the series will have a terribly long lifespan. It just strikes me as something that has immediately, very riskily jarred its audience in the second chapter
2
by throwing
tops.
a huge... Sure, I mean, that's generally how long the short-lived Jump series lasts. But again, it does strike me as a series that had, it gave one idea of what its premise would be to do it in the first chapter, but then it kind of confused those readers in the second chapter, and so now I don't know if the readership is more invested or has lost that initial readership's investment in the series. So again, I guess it'll remain to be seen how general readers respond to this. But for me, it did really jar me. It did really kind of make me confused as to what the series is about now, and like what the hook is for the series now, and why I should be invested in what the series is now. So we will see what happens with Double Taisei going forward.